Ooh. Have we got a boom, 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 boom? Hey, I'm Thundercloud. Ashley's here. I'm here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. It's the build-up. It's Wednesday Words on the 16th. Is it 16th today? Yeah, 15th of November. Yes, that's right. 2023. You know my mum, she calls me James, washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after rains. All right, let's have a few linguistic games. Well, where are we? I'm here in front of this fantastic stage in the Arcadia Theatre, and I thought I'd begin the evening, well, as I usually do, by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, the Bangbai and Kamilaroi people on which I broadcast, and acknowledge sovereignty's never been ceded. And after that, continuing to, well, I guess 3 years and 9, 12, 11, 3 years and 8 months I've been here in Guyra, setting up the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, working 6 days a week, pretty much 7, etc., and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to begin the night by just going over some of the things that have happened over the last 3 years. Well, one of the biggest things that's happened here is the setting up of the library over there, the Australian Poetry Library and Archive, and the collection of over 2,000 Australian poetry books for Australia. Yeah, that's really kind of good, because there's books over there that way out of print. One of them printed by the Vorpal Gallery in Hobart in 1972. There's only 200 books of it published, and I happened to come across one in a Rotary book sale, and it was 100 of 250 signed by the author with a bound, with a leather-bound strap. As well as that, there's well over 40 portraits here of poets that I've painted around the place in the last 3.5 years, drawn and painted, and that only intends to grow. And so that's the Poets Hall of Fame just off to the side over there. And then, of course, the setting up of this stage and the replacement of the chairs up in the dress circle up there. They're not all the exact same chairs as what they were, but there's still a whole dress circle balcony there that now seats well over 100 people, as well as all the chairs down here. What else has happened in the last 3 years? Well, events. We've had Fiori Musicali, the Armadale Chamber Choir here a number of times, and they are just fantastic because this venue here has the best acoustics in all of New England. We've had in 2020, November 2020, we had the Armadale Symphony Orchestra string section here. That was fantastic too. We've had some bush dancers here. Every Wednesday night we've had this Wednesday Words Poetry Night, which tonight is quite subdued due to some of our poets not being so well and away. Sky is cooking bed. Big shout out to Sky. Hope you get well and over that fever soon. Gabriel, who will be coming in later on in the week. And yeah, the rest of this week, well, what is really exciting is what's happening this weekend is the New South Wales Bush Poetry Performance Championships. So we're going to bring the best performance poets in New South Wales to Guyra here, and they're going to have a chance to perform, be judged, and be crowned the New South Wales Performance Poetry, Bush Poetry Champion for 2023, and there hasn't been one of those for quite many years. Not a New South Wales champion anyway. Plus, we'll be announcing the winner of the New South Wales Bush Poetry Writing Championship. Who will that be? There are some well and truly quite a lot of entries, actually, over 100 entries. So, yeah, that's a hard one to judge, but excuse me. But yeah, that will be announced. As well as that, the winners, the honourable mentions of the Australian Bush Poetry Film Festival will be announced. And also, I'm announcing now that as of the 1st of January, the 2024 Australian Poetry Film Festival will be open for submissions right up until November, so that'll be 11 months to get the submission in for next year's Australian Poetry Film Festival. There'll be 3 categories next year. There'll be Best Australian Bush Poetry Film, Best Australian Poetry Film, not Bush Poetry, and Best Youth Poetry Film as well. So 3 categories. Keep an eye out for that on filmfreeway.com and follow me, or go to our website, australianpoetryhalloffame.com.au, and subscribe, and I will send you emails of what's happening here, when it's happening, etc. So, and keep you informed directly to your inbox. Now I'm just going to have a sip of this kombucha, immunity kombucha. And tonight I figured if anyone is the mother of Australian poetry, it would be Henry Lawson's mum, because Henry Lawson had a mum, and her name was Louisa Lawson. She was known as the mother of Australian suffrage, Australian womanhood suffrage, for her work in opening up a magazine called The Dawn, which was Australian women's suffrage magazine, and was essentially got women in Australia the vote. So this is from, she left her husband at the age of 37 and took all the kids to Sydney, where she bought the Republic magazine, and then she opened the Dawn magazine, which was Australia's first female suffrage magazine. And it was in that magazine, those magazines, that she supported her son, who went on to become one of Australia's greatest published writers, Henry Lawson. Alright, so this is from The Lonely Crossing and Other Poems. The Lonely Crossing. A man on foot came down to the river, a silent man on the road alone. He dropped his swag with a chill-born shiver and sat to rest on a wind-worn stone. He slid then down to the long grass, bending his arms above as resting do, and watched as a snow-white chariot trending its wind-made way o'er the Wedgwood blue. In it sat one of the fairest ladies that mind could mould in a crown of white, but close beside came a fiend from Hades in a chariot black. That's the heart of night. The man he sighed as the fiend would clasp her, then smiled as the wind by wise decree her white steeds turned on the streets of jasper, and Satan drave to a sin-black sea. The wattles waved in their sweet reflection in crystal fathoms, responses made. The sunlight silted each soft inflection and fretted with silver the shortening shade. A restless fish made the thin reeds shiver. A walking wind made the willows moan. But the resting man by the noon-bright river lay dreaming on in the long grass prone. The bellbird called to its tardy lover. The grebe clouds all to the west had sped, but the river of death had a soul crossed over. The man with the swag on the bank was dead. Pretty poem, actually. Pretty poem, powerful as well. Coming Home by Louisa Lawson. Going round the back street through the twilight lane, while the folk at church meet, coming home again. fat hat and creasy, long since it was new, ent flag torn and greasy, bluey showing through. Billy burnt and battered, boots all badly burst, lace and lace holes shattered, trousers at their worst. Blankets like a riddle, with a streak of white, down the thread-bed middle, went against the light. Young face lined and sunburnt, hair just turning grey. Many a lesson unlearnt since he went away. But he need not bother, there's a bite and sup for and for all the other. Mother'll fix him up. Really, coming home it was. All right, but then there's another one, back again. Oh, my boy, come in, do. You're back at last. Years since we saw you. How the time has passed. Have a bath and shave first. No? A cup of tea? Think you want a rest? Worst? Dear, oh dearie me. Look, dear, at your boots too, all cut with the rocks. And you haven't, have you, any mended socks? They're always tearing. Threw them all away? Alberts you are wearing? Goodness, what are they? Felt that you were coming, so I wrote to Bob. He says things are humming, and you'll get a job. Now dear, don't come near me. You're all over dust. Can you smoke? Oh dear me, if you really must. That's interesting, that one, because one of the parts of Louisa Lawson's life is that she had 3 sons and a daughter. And one of those sons, not Henry, threatened his brother, Henry's other brother, with a noose, put a noose around his neck and threatened to hang him. And then ran away from the family home and was never heard of again, or maybe never heard of again, I'm not too sure. But that's a very interesting part of their life, yeah. So yeah, that coming back, my boy back again, it's just kind of I can see where she's sort of coming from with that. Maybe her son did come back to visit at one time. The hour is come. How did she fight? She fought well. How did she light? Oh, she fell. Why did she fall? God, who knows all, can only tell. Those she was fighting for, they surely would go to her? Nay? What of her pain? Theirs is the gain, ever the way. Will they not help her to rise, if there is not death in their eyes? Can you not see she made them free? What if she dies? Can we not help her? Oh no, in a good fight it is so, that all who work never must shirk suffering and woe. But she'll not ever lie down. On her head is the dust, is a crown, jewelled and bright, under whose light she'll rise alone. The hour is coming. I'm liking these rhyming structures that she's using here too. A friend in need. Friends will quickly leave you, slight you and deceive you, or will not you believe you if you have a wrong. Those who hurt will hate you, enemies will slate you, and crank disrate you if you have a wrong. But if you are righted, those who coolly slighted will be so delighted, said so all along. But you can show them that you would forgo them, as too well you know them since you've had a wrong. But your friends, God bless them. Take their hands and press them. You'll not have to guess them if you've had a wrong. A Friend in Need, that's called, by Louisa Lawson. Twilight. Though labour may claim and cover the best of our waking hours, whatever we owe another, we feel that the dusk is ours. 'Tis then that the hard views taken of things in the day glare seen will soften and tint and waken and tone neath the twilight screen, while the night bird softly tenders sweet trebles in monotone, and the king of day surrenders to the queen of night his throne. When the earth and sky are lovers, and the present and past are wed, and the satisfied soul discovers how surely God hath led. And then as the heart confesses the sins of a selfish way, the spirit of pardon bless, and closes the gates of day. Twilight by Louisa Lawson. Here we go. As I mentioned, she was known as the mother of womanhood suffrage, and her work was very strong in getting women the vote in elections in Australia, in New South Wales in 1902. And because she was working and educated, and she obviously, like most women, felt, believed and knew that she had the right to participate in our democratic processes. The reformers. We lead the way to rise alert, to meet each day. We start the fight, we head the fray, we lead the way, we lead the way. We turn the sod, we stir the pool, we point the way to those who rule. We check the road, we chide the fool, we point the way to those who rule. We bear reverse, we breast rebuff, we force a way over passers rough, we stand the kick, we take the cuff, till death's stern umpire calls enough. Well, I guess I'm going to take a break now, and not from reading, from reading poetry, and just talk a little bit about the plans for the future here for the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Well, obviously to utilise this space, now that I feel like I was very well set up, and to bring people in here, to utilise this space for workshops, for events, for dances, for workshops for schools. I'd really love to involve and invite school groups in to be able to do performance workshops, for schools to have theatre productions here even, that's a possibility, as well as any other touring performers who are touring around Australia. This is a fantastic venue, especially if you're a country music singer or a comedian. You would get a crack of a crowd here in Guyra. You'd get hundreds of people, and this place can handle it. As well as that, what else do I want to do? Well, there's the Australian Poetry Library over there. It's currently at 2,000 plus books, and it's growing. I know there's a box of books coming on the way from a lovely lady who's just made a donation of her poetry books as she's downsizing in her later years. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to those arriving sometime in the next few days or week. And people just keep doing that because they don't want their precious poetry books just to go off to Vinnie's and and disappear into some bonfire or anywhere. They do want them to go into somewhere else. The other thing I would love to do is to get some really big murals on the walls of this fantastic theatre of poets and Australian scenes of poets, poets basically, because it's poets that we're celebrating here. Here we go, the hill of death. No downward path to death we go, through no dark shades or valleys low, but up and o'er rises bright towards the dawn of endless light. For not in lowlands can we see the path that was and that to be, but on the height just where the soul takes deeper breath to reach the goal. There we can see the winding way that we have journeyed all our day, then turn and view this with spirit still, our future home beyond the hill of death, by Louisa Lawson. Ooh, here we go, another one. I'm going to skip one. No, I'll do two. The Digger's Daughter, so this will tell you. So, a digger. Well, Louisa Lawson was writing before World War I. What would have been a digger then? Would a digger still actually been a soldier?
It was
or a miner?
Generic for miners.
Okay, cool.
And then they took it across to the ditches of slaughter.
So yeah. So because she was there on the goldfields, and that was her big thing, or what reason. When she was 18, she married a 37-year-old, and they lived on the goldfields until she reached 37. And then at 37, she was able to leave her husband and go to Sydney, and that's when she bought the Dawn, the magazine, and the Republic. So the Digger's Daughter. So she had direct experience on the mine fields, in the gold fields. The Waratah has stained her cheek, her lips are even brighter. Her virgin quartz without a streak, her teeth are but far whiter. Her eyes are large and soft and dark, as clear as running water, and straight as any stringy bark is Lil, the Digger's Daughter. She'll wash a prospect quick and well, and deftly use the ladle. The weight of gold at sight she'll tell, and work with tub and cradle. She was her father's only mate, and wound up wash and water. She worked all day and studied late, and all she knows he taught her. She stood alone above the shaft, a test for woman rather, when I sprang to the windless half, and she helped her land her father. She turned her pretty face to me, and I thought her the grandest girl of all her race, sweet Lil, the Digger's Daughter. And when my luck began to change, I grew a trifle bolder, and told my love, but thought it strange she knew before I told her. She said that she would be my wife, then I proudly bought her to be my loving mate for life, but still the Digger's Daughter. Interesting that. So she's writing from the perspective of a man there. A libertine. There's blood in the ink of her writing. The paper is stiffened with tears, and I with my conscience am fighting and striving to quiet my fears. And these are the words she's saying, my life I can no longer bear, for my death I am constantly praying. Oh, when will God answer my prayer? There's a pause. I met her when first the faint dawning of womanhood tinted her youth. She then had no past like the morning, for she was all candour and truth. She knelt at my feet in confession and asked me for leading and light. To right there was no retrogression, to cleanse what was spotless and white. She held me in deep veneration. She looked on me almost as God, and gave her sweet life's conservation of love to the vilest that trod. I taught her that love was the duty and life of the angels of light, then spoiled her sweet spiritual beauty and turned her away from the right. I wooed her in delicate fashion, then sullied her soul with my lust. I poisoned her life with my passion and murdered her beautiful trust. And now her sweet spirit is flitting to where other spirits wait, while I with my soul lepers am sitting in torment at hell's awful gate. What a great writer. You can see why Henry was such a great writer, when she can write with that kind of rhyme and metre and prosaic literacy. All right. Well, I might do one more and then invite Ashley up to come and do some. And then I might come back and do some of my own. All right. So yeah, let me just give you a rundown of what's happening here over the next few days. We've got tomorrow. There's in the morning there's workshops with yours truly. In the afternoon there's workshops with Bill Kearns, Tom McElveen, and Robin Sykes. So we'll be fantastic. They're starting at 1 o'clock. Friday, the same three, as well as Ray Essery. Then we've got an open mic. Friday evening we've got the Gyra Poets, and Saturday morning we've got the New South Wales Bush Poetry Championship. The first one that kicks off at 10:30 is there's 4 heats for the performance champion, and they've got to go through all, and it's cumulative sort of to pick the winner. And so the first heat is the traditional bush poetry, where they recite a traditional bush poem pre-1953, which means it's out of copyright. Then the second heat is the modern bush poetry, where they recite a modern bush poet's poem of another bush poet. The third heat after lunch on Saturday afternoon is the third heat is the original series. So that's something that they've written themselves, and it's serious. And you really usually got some of the best poems. And then finally, original humorous on Sunday morning. Now, Saturday and Sunday morning, there's Poets Breakfast starting here at 8:30, and also on Friday, or on Saturday night, we've got the Rhymers Gala show featuring Bill Kearns, Ray Essery, Robin Sykes, Tom McElveen and Susan Ashton of Spirotime. So that is going to be a really good show as well. They are some of the best bush poets in Australia. Definitely. They're going to be the judges, but they're also putting on a show. So get here up to Gyra this weekend. It's going to be super duper exciting. All right, so we've got one more to go. Let's go for this one. A plea for Australia. Let's just put this in context. This was written over 100 years ago. Come out from among them, ye sons of Australia. Come out and denounce them with tongue and with pen. Tear off from each traitor her honoured regalia. Give back to Australia her birthright again. Golden tiara that flashed over the mountain, the girdle of opals like fires on the sea, was stolen and scattered like drops from a fountain. Ye shall, her protectors say, thus shall it be. To robe her in sackcloth, to crown her with ashes, cast lots for her raiment, and sully her frame. Rob, wrong, and belie her until with wet lashes she bows her fair forehead in sorrow and shame. She who is so queenly, our tender girl mother, beloved of heroes, by white virgins blessed, from pole unto pole find ye never another like her of earth's daughters, the fairest and best. Come out from among them, ye true sons of Australia. Come out from among them and show yourselves men, with courage undaunted and fearing not failure. Give back to Australia her prestige again.
When was that written?
I'd be interested to know.
And that was written by...
Louisa Lawson.
Was it?
Yeah. So it would have been, because I think she didn't pass away until maybe 1923 or something like that. I can't quite recall off the top of my head. I'll have to check that up. 1920 she passed away. So it could have been written any time in that early part of but definitely after Federation. An interesting critique, I thought. Now, would you like to come on up, Ashley?
Thank you.
All right.
Well, how... Good morning and good evening. How amazed I was by that poem of Louisa Lawson's. I'll start with a quick story that will go down on the record as part of Australian cultural life, connected to Louisa. My mother, Pat Albanese, when she was teaching at Mudgee, she had organised for the new school they were building to be named in Louisa Lawson's honour, the Louisa Lawson High School. She'd worked this out with the department, and the night the vote came through for the name of the high school, she was sick, looking after my sister Natasha, and she didn't go to the meeting. And these are, in my opinion, the unfortunate moments in Australian cultural and political history. A block of farmers objected to a school being named after a feminist radical woman of the 19th century. And my mother wasn't there to speak as she would speak or I would speak and sway the votes to have the school called the Louisa Lawson High School, as had been planned and organised. And the block of farmers' votes blocked it. It's a story of Louisa Lawson's ghost, I think. And my mother was particularly unhappy about that. But there you are, there's a story about Louisa involving my own genesis. The poem that James read last from her had a great deal of significance for me, because I didn't quite realise that a woman writer in 1900, thereabouts, was so involved with a movement of, what would I say, psychic thought or metaphoric thought that I wrote my honours thesis upon when I did an English honours thesis here at UNE back in the late 70s, I think. And I basically wrote about that poem, and I had no idea that an Australian voice had expressed all of those things that were very important. Interestingly enough, in United States cultural history of that moment. Here are my friends, my three trusted friends. I focus on plastic tonight because every year China produces 40 million chopsticks, and perhaps one day she'll make a form of plastic chopsticks to save our beloved timber. So that's my hypothesis, that one day 40 million chopsticks will be made in plastic, or of a form of plastic. Who knows what we may yet discover in electrochemistry. And the implications of that, some relaxation for trees to grow up towards the sunny god. As many horses' lives were saved when the steam engine came upon us. And the parameters of that, well, I am sort of saying they're endless, aren't I? Human invention knitted in with nature may yet give us some surprises if we persevere. I will start off. I didn't write this week because I have not been depressed, but I've been reading 3 or 4 hours a day about the present economic and military crossroads or conjunction we're in on this planet. So I'll see if something relevant comes up from going serendipitously to Coleridge's letters, and then I'll read 6 fairly short poems by Robert Graves. And I was thinking as I went through these to read, they have a strange sort of resonance with the tone of Australian writers and writing. And I think people who knew him would possibly feel there was some space that was analogous with Australia in Robert Graves. My mother actually lived with his daughter, Catherine, and so there's more strange integuments of culture through a family that is not living forever, as with all families. I opened up miscellaneous, so I'll see. Shakespeare never introduces a catalectic line without intending an equivalent to the foot omitted in the pauses of the dwelling emphasis or the diffuse retardation. I do not, however, deny that a good actor might be employing the last mentioned, vis-a-vis the retardation or solemn knowing drawl, supply the missing spondee with good effect. Well, I enjoyed reading that because evidently Coleridge could go for hours in that mode, and it's very meaningful. People who took down, in fact, he was a unique voice in our English language, really, and people who made notes of his table talk after he recovered his health and got over the overnesses of opium, were always quite amazed, and they always said, oh, we wish we could have written down more of what he had to yabba about. So I'll start with The Furious Voyage. Apples and Watermelon was my first one. And Angry Samson. I'm jumping around. Angry Samson. Not blind at the mill of slaves, as Milton would have it, but a lord of Gaza. Are they blind, the lords of Gaza, in their strong towers, who declare Samson pillows smothered and stripped of his powers? Oh, stolid Philistines, stare now in amaze at my foxes running in your cornfields with their tails ablaze, at swung jawbone, at bees swarming in the stark lion's hide. At these the gates of well-walled Gaza are clanked to my stride. Oh, what endless dramas the world of the Levant, Gaza and Tyre and Byblos seem to bring us on the tides of history. The next I will read is On Rising Early, a charming ditty, something I do not do but should. The Hindus tell us that the longest living people are those who rise early and go for a walk, not stay in bed reading the night's headlines on their computer in a phrase or phase of talk. On rising early. Rising early and walking in the garden before the sun has properly climbed the hill, his rays warming the roof, not yet the grass, which is white with dew still, and not enough breeze to eddy a puff of smoke, and out in the meadows a thick mist lying yet, and nothing anywhere ill or noticeable. Thanks indeed for that. But was there ever a day with wit enough to be always early, to draw the smoke up straight, even at 3 o'clock of an afternoon, to spare dullness or sweat? Indeed, Many such days I remember that were dew white and gracious to the last, that ruled out meal times, yet had no more hunger than was felt by rising a half hour before breakfast. No more fatigue. Where was it that I went? So unencumbered, with my feet trampling like strangers on the past. I used to stand in the laboratory room at Walgett High School, and science lessons were always quite extraordinary there. And I didn't teach science, but I was often running that class or in that class because of the exigencies of how we had to run with the kids runningly. And I'd stand when the laboratory was empty, and I'd always stare at the wall and the way the science teachers had set out all the gear for experiments very systematically. And it was like looking at, I don't know, something dancing in sequence and in order, so that you would roll the kids through these processes so they'd have some experience of moving through to a result and a surprising relationship of nature that is shown through experiment. So this short poem has quite a profundity, I think. He was an interesting guy, Robert Graves. It's called Synthetic Such. The sum of all the parts of such, of each laboratory scene, is such. While science means this much and means no more, why, let it mean. But were the science men to find some animating principle which gave synthetic such a mind, vital, though metaphysical, to such an event, I think, would cause unscientific pain. Science, appalled by thought, would shrink to its component parts again. Very fascinating little poem, that one. To bring the dead to life. I never read I, Claudius and the other books about the oddities of Rome, but perhaps I shall. But I could tell the wit in them from the television projection of them, television series projection of them. So this is very witty. To bring the dead to life. To bring the dead to life is no great magic. Few are wholly dead. Blow on a dead man's embers. When alive, flame will start. Let his forgotten griefs be now, and now his withered hopes. Subdue your pen to his handwriting until it prove as natural to sign his name as yours. Limp as he limped, swear by the oaths he swore. If he wore black, affect the same. If it gouty fingers, be yours gouty too. Assemble tokens intimate of him, a watch, a cloak, a pen. Around these elements then build a home familiar to the greedy revenant. So grant him life, but reckon that the grave which housed him may not be empty now. You in his spotted garments shall yourself lie wrapped. And of course you're playing on the word rapture and being wrapped up there. W-R-A-P-P-E-D. He's very, as I said, very witty. It's a sad story about the high school at Mudgee failing to be called after Louisa Lawson. It upset my mother profoundly because it was ready to roll through that night. But for the visit of a stranger from Porlock or my sister Natasha's ill health, the logo would have gone up such. Well, here's a poem that reminds me of James Warren. The Beach. Louder than gulls the little children scream, whom fathers haul into the jovial foam. But others fearlessly rush in, breast high, laughing the salty water from their mouths, heroes of the nursery. The horny boatman who has seen whales, flying fishes, who has sailed as far as Demerara and the Ivory Coast, will warn them when they crowd to hear his tales that every ocean smells alike of tar. Ah, that's an interesting poem, isn't it? Reminds me of my boyhood on Fingal Beach. We were all heroes of the nursery. We'd come down river to Fingal, which was the sort of Merbarites' place of gesturing to eternity and eternity looking back. The last one I'll read is Dance of Words. This reminds me of Mr. Warren too, as I picked these this evening. I thought, yes. Dance of Words. To make them move, you should start from lightning and not forecast the rhythm. Rely on chance, or so-called chance, for its bright emergence once lightning interpenetrates the dance. Grant them their own traditional steps and postures, but see they dance it out again and again until only lightning is left to puzzle over, the choreography plain and the theme plain.
Like that one.
Ah,
Yeah.
he's really a great writer, and he's one of those voices that reached a big audience, ultimately. Like T.S. Eliot, and yes, a friend of my mother's organised for T.S. Eliot to come to Australia. Speaking of Australian cultural oddity, he was lecturing work in Sydney for some time, and the synod, or the diocese of the Anglican Church in Sydney, decided that he was persona non grata, not to be invited to lecture and teach in Sydney. Now that's an oddity. Thanks very much.
Wow. Hello, I'm here and I'm back again, and we've got David Melville coming in. Hello, David. You got a bit of poetry for us coming up?
Yeah, if you want a couple.
All right. Well, let me do a couple first, and I'll get you up here in a moment.
Do something serious. We've been funny tonight.
Oh, hey.
That poem of Louisa's Lawson's is a gem. That one about the goddess.
Oh, it was. You know, I get a lot of. Well, actually, I've actually had over the last maybe 4 or 5 months, probably 5 months, and I am counting 16 phone calls from different companies, all wanting to give me a free hot water upgrade.
A what?
Hot water upgrade. So they want to take my old, which is not that old, it's only 2.5 years old, 60 litre, quite efficient, small hot water system, and give me a 200 litre heat sink one with a big compressor outside. But see, where my hot water system is, there's nowhere else to put it at all. You can't, because they'd have to put it way out there, like a good 19, 20 metres away from where it currently is in the kitchen, because it's about this big. Anyway, I'm counting them, and every time it's like, okay, you are now the 14th, you are now the 15th, you are now the 16th to tell me, and I'm telling you, there is nowhere that you can put a hot water service. Do you understand? Oh yes, but we can just make an appointment to send. No! All right. They want to keep making these appointments. So they make these appointments, they send these people out, and they've done this a few times, and I've let them, and then the people come, we can't do it. And so then they take a video, and they send it back to their supervisor. And I said, no, we can't do it. So I'm up to 16 now. And it's all about carbon credits. It's all carbon credits. These companies put these in for the government, and then they get to sell carbon credits because they've put in a hot water service in my place. Even though they give it to me for free, and then they sell the hot water service the carbon credit because they've upgraded. Anyway.
They give it to you for free.
Yeah. So I was at the other end of my tether, and this guy the other day, like, I'm usually really quite polite with them, and I say, look, you are now the 14th, 15th, 16th, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I can't be done. So, do you understand? Oh, yes, but where is your hot water service? It's up my bum. End of tether. It can't be done because it's up me bum. A while, hot water system, a big hot water system, and then some. How many times do I need to say, listen, son, it can't be done. Have a cut of a day. But we want to give you a free hot water system. I've told you, but you don't listen. That was the result of my frustration with that particular phone call.
You could have lit the world up on that degree of frustration.
Well, I didn't. See, this is the wonderful thing about like poetry. You don't have to answer. You don't have to speak to people like that. But then I can write that out.
So, in what time period did you say you've had this 16 times?
Oh, the last 5 months since what his name, Kevin Rudd, since Albanese got in.
Is it commercial properties?
Wow.
Oh yeah, they're only doing what do you call it, cafes. So they're calling all the cafes, and they're going around, and if they got in early, they would have got the jobs, and there were a few people where they did get the job. But all these ones that have jumped on the bandwagon late, they're missing out. It can't be done. All the vultures got in early. Yeah. Anyway. A little red duck was floating in the lake dead from a hunter's gun because Cletus said to Chuck, let's make mayhem and death for fun. A little black duck was flying in the sky. Cletus shot its head. Oh, I love watching shot animals writhe and die in glee, Cletus said. Cletus and Chuck went to fetch their duck and waded into the swamp. Cletus got his wading boots stuck and the crocodile went chomp. Chuck went running through the swamp to get help for his friend. Another waiting crocodile went chomp, and so my gory story ends. The moral of this story goes, don't shoot ducks that are flying, then wade into a crocodile swamp unless you feel like dying. Pretty simple, eh? All right. Well, I'm going to do one more of what I've written this week, and then invite. I haven't actually written a lot this week, because I've been really busy organising everything here. So that's it, pretty much. Well, you would never know happy if. Maybe I did this last week, maybe not. Oh, no. Here we go. Yeah, you'd never know happy if you'd never known sad. Once we know despair, we can experience joy and glad. You would never know freedom if you had never known loss. Cold would be normal if you'd only ever known ice and frost. You would never know loss if you had never ever paid a cost. There is a calm after storms when ships are rocked and tossed. That's that. And I'll read to you later. Wanty, kian getty, no wanty. David Melville, welcome. We've got our first bush poet here for the festival. David Melville.
Just made it too.
Yeah.
Oh,
But you did make it.
truck's climbing up for it. Serious one, you said you wanted?
Eh?
Actually,
Sorry?
You said serious?
Oh no, I was joking.
Oh, well, we'll go serious first. Everybody that knew him had moved or passed away. No one remembered. No one listened to a word he had to say. It was sad that you could be forgotten before you've died. Old age, eh? Takes away your dignity. The tears wash away your pride. An old ringer, tired and weary through and through. An old ringer. No mates, no relos, and bugger all to do. Oh, but you would have once heard a story of a ringer who stood tall, called the Ringer's Ringer. He was the best of them all. Drove cattle and horses to places other men wouldn't go, drove them to places other men would never know. A man of action, hardly used the spoken word. Stock whips spoke for him. Cattle listened, and they heard. Not one for talking or idle chat, friends few and far between. Not interested in what other men had done, and not interested in what other men had seen. Oh, we had mates of various kinds and breed. And like him, all they wanted was a drink, a work and a feed. He never took a woman, he never took a bride. Couldn't settle, couldn't attach, no matter how hard he tried. Years in a saddle had taken a toll on his health. Drinking, smoking and gambling had stolen his wealth. His years of experience, that didn't count somehow. Young men knew better. Old man, things are different now. So he drank, and he smoked, and he gambled, and he recalled earlier days. Like an old horse, alone in a paddock, lost in a gaze. An old ringer, tired and weary through and through. An old ringer, no mates, no relos, and bugger all to do. But he wouldn't change places or trade anything with you. Content with what he'd done and satisfied with what he's been through. True story.
Yes, that comes through.
This is a true story too. I was in a city pub with my mates years ago. We're going camping where we can see a show. We're going to travel down some of those country roads to a muster put on by those people called codes. I said, those country folk, I hear they're quite insane. All they talk about drought and farming, and you think that it might rain. And that country music, boy, it's really quite inane. All those songs about love and dying, and everyone's in pain. Well, as you can see, this country trip was not for me. But it's where I got my first taste of bush poetry. Well, there you go. I was up from the start. I was going to write poems, they would come from the heart. And it did occur to me that there was a possibility that there had never been a poet as good as me. So I started to write poetry. It was all about me, or only because I couldn't find anyone else more interesting, you see. Well, I wanted to become famous, and I knew what that took. So I wrote down the world's greatest poetry book. I got about 10,000 printed with an option if I needed more. I got them spruced up and I took them around to every bookstore. Oh, they grabbed them. They said they're on the showroom floor. One bloke said, give us your phone number. We're going to need a lot more. Well, after about a month, I give those stores a ring. They all said, those poetry books, geez, mate, we haven't sold a thing. We're walking down the street, a misunderstood poet, you see. There out the front of Vinnie's was a box, and it said, take these, they're free. And down the bottom, beneath an old Engelberty Lumperdinck CD, the world's greatest book of poetry. Mm-hmm. But none had sold. They'd given it away. This was blasphemy. Then I remembered, on the inside page I'd written a little note. If I turned it over and looked, I could tell to whom I gave it and what I wrote. So I leant down and I picked up the world's greatest book of poetry reverently, turned the page, gasped, and then fell to the ground on each knee. For there above me, Monica, or it didn't half make me sad. The note it said, these poems I wrote for you. I love you, Mum and Dad. True story.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, mate. That was short ones.
All right, well, I got a couple of bush poetry ones now. First one, I wanted to write a funny bush poem, and well, it's the funniest thing I could think of is falling in a dunny, Froggy Flat. A peaceful place is Froggy Flat, and my story's funny about a man named Phil McColl, who fell headfirst in a dunny. It was a dark and lonely night, and this is not a joke. As Phil walked to the toilet, the dunny made a croak. He turned his phone torch on and opened up the door, and as he walked inside, the dunny croaked once more. Then the dunny kept on croaking in the middle of the night. He shone the torch about to find everything all right. It was a long drop compost and not a pleasant smell. As he opened up the lid, he tripped and his phone fell. It was dark inside the dunny, but he knew his phone was right. It had landed on the sawdust and Phil could see the light. He went back to the kitchen and got a pair of tongs. His feet were cold, and so he put on a pair of thongs. In the dark he couldn't see. The thongs belonged to his wife. In Phil's, they were too small and the cause of the coming strife. His wife awoke to an empty bed and also needed to pee. In the dark she donned Phil's thongs because she couldn't see. In Froggy Flat, the dunny is far down the garden path. In Phil's big thongs, Mrs. McColl slipped and fell flat on her ass. Phil was head first in the toilet. He was leaning in, reaching for his phone when Mrs. McColl burst in. Saw her thongs on Phil, and she began to yell, and in her fright, Phil lost his grip, and that is when he fell head first down the dunny and landed on his phone. Wiped it off, and then he found he wasn't alone. There, inside the dunny, was a giant green tree frog staring him in the face and croaking on a log. Mrs. Mac looked down the hole and yelled, "What can I do? I'm busting for a pee and I also need to poo. I've got a turtle head and it's starting to poke out. Call the SES, you stupid woman. Phil began to shout. Well, Mrs. Mac got angry. She pulled up her nightie and had a sit. She let it rip and Phil got covered in more shit. Then she went back to the kitchen, made a cup of tea, then called the SES and all Phil's mates to come around and see. Well, they had to dig him out as Phil was firmly stuck with a pump and excavator in the local sewage truck. That afternoon, Phil was freed. He gave a happy shout. He'd been stuck in shit for 14 hours before they dug him out. A peaceful place is Froggy Flat. But you won't find Phil McColl. Locals now refer to Phil McColl as Phil Me Hole. And now the next one. This one was written in 2020 when I first got here to Gyra. I was thinking about, writing about different places, and Tinga is just about 70 k's that way. An interesting little town, tin mining town. Tinga Billy. Tinga Billy was a farmer and he planted trees along his creeks and gullies and he pulled out weeds. As a lad, Billy's dad sent him off to school. He studied every day because Billy was no fool. When he graduated Ag College, he went home with a plan to lend a hand to his dad to regenerate the land. He planted fields of native yam between the forest stands, finger lime and gumby. Tinga Billy's plan was grand. Tinga Billy carried water from the creek to grow the trees. Summer sun had scorched the earth, brought drought and disease. A plague of feral pigs, led by the mighty boar, ripped up seedlings by their roots and dug the forest floor. The yams were gone. The finger limes trampled, gumby too. Tinga Billy knew exactly what Billy had to do. Billy got real mad. He ran home and got his gun. He said, "Come on, Dad, the pigs are here. Let's go have some fun." The pigs bolted through the pumpkin field as they pulled up in the truck. Billy told his dad, "I'm going to fix this muck." He lifted up his rifle, took a careful aim. Little did Tinga Billy know of his approaching fame. The monster boar charged as Tinga Billy pulled the trigger. But the rifle didn't fire and the boar grew bigger and bigger. He jumped up on the ute and Billy grabbed a rope. He knew that it was his only hope. He leapt and threw his rope and caught the mighty boar. 200 kilos of mighty boar gave a mighty roar. He leapt upon its back, the boar took it in its stride, bolted off with Tinga Billy through the countryside. Through the scrub it bolted, but Tinga Billy had a grip. The boar took Billy on a mighty bush bash trip. Tinga Billy's only hope was to wear the boar down. His grip grew tight as the mighty boar headed into town. Through Darby's Creek, left Diamond Street, then Opal Street to Ruby Street. He'd still be going next week if Auntie Dot hadn't heard him shriek. Rode fast past the Wing Hing Long Museum, a bus road of tourists cheered to see him. He went viral on a COVID and Facebook Zoom stream, made the whole world laugh hysterically and scream. Tinga Billy was just about to shoot to frame as Auntie Dot raised her rifle and took careful aim, squeezed the trigger and shot that boar up the arse. In Gyra rode the boar slow, but didn't die fast. Tinga Billy almost got halfway to Gilgai before that mighty boar collapsed to finally die. It jumped off the road to avoid a truck into Bluebeard's Gully where it finally got stuck. It was Tinga Billy's very lucky day. He got down from the boar and yelled, "Yippee, I got a monster boar for dinner." When things looked dire, Tinga Billy looked down and found a monster sapphire. "Well, when things looked dire, I landed in a ditch. I'll have roast pork for dinner and this sapphire makes me rich." And that's the story of how Tinga Billy shot to fame when he rode a monster boar 10 k's and staked a sapphire mining claim. So yeah, I can just imagine that because there's so many pig shooters around here and there's some big ones and they can get up to 200 kilos. Like I believe, like that's a huge one. That's very big. Well, I'm not sure. I know that nowadays sheep are, like in the last 60 years, sheep have gone from 60 kilos to 100 kilos for merino. So it's a lot of hard work to shear a merino if they're a big sheep these days. Not so much for a little baby one, for Mary's lamb. All right, well look, we're nearly at the end. I have got, one more to go for my, this one. I get like ideas in my head about stuff and often I find that when you give people something that's not appreciated and when people get something that they don't really, it's just not appreciated anyway. This was from a Jamaican proverb which goes like this: wanty wanty can getty and getty getty no wanty, which means if you want it, it's hard to get, and if you get it easily, it's not wanted or appreciated. Government slaves take welfare to spend on rent and clothes and fare, then complain it's not enough while the taxpayers are doing it tough. In times of struggle, wants are high, welfare's a lifeline to define. Conditions and obligations tight, welfare traps spirits, extinguishes light. Paternalism's grip, controlling play, dictated choices holding sway. Autonomy becomes a dying spark, government decisions leave a mark. Stigma, a shadow of ghostly shade, casting judgment on choices made. Individual self-worth ripped and torn, in hidden whispers about seed not sown. Manacled with dependencies embrace, ambition stifled, goals unchased, life impeded, plans laid to rest, welfare's grip tightens the chest. Empowerment becomes a peak to seek, ignite self-worth as all are unique. To break free of the shackles of need, rise above the rest, strength to succeed, and now reshape the narrative imparted. Transform our lives, let's get started, with empathy and respect all around. In empowerment, courage and hope are found. Yeah, that's, handouts. Wouldn't mind a handout, but hey, I seem to just give the government handouts. Yeah, the government takes handouts from me, you know. That's the way the money flows. Yeah, it never comes this way. But hey, I'm not complaining. I'd rather give money to the government, pay taxes, than be a leech. You know, a dependent leech who can't do anything for themselves, and blame the world. Oh, the world's against me. No, I never took responsibility for my own self. Yeah, you know what I mean, eh?
I just was looking on Facebook. Wally Lewis was being interviewed some years ago.
Yeah.
And he had trouble with the taxation department.
Yeah.
And they were taking 60 cents and everything that he earned.
I know.
And he was complaining because he'd won a car and worth 10,000, but he had to give them, the government, 6. And he was saying, I said to the bloke from the taxation department sitting there, I said, look, I've had 4 broken arms, 4 broken brakes. He said, I've had 3 broken noses. He said, how about I give you 60% of those?
No,
an offer.
no, no. Well, all right. Well, look, we've got a big weekend coming up. We've got workshops. We've got Bush Poetry Championships. We've got the Rhymers Gala and the Gyra Variety Show. Everything's happening this weekend, so it's really exciting. So thank you. If you've stayed with us this long to the end, I've got a special one to finish off with tonight for you. I've just got to pull it up here. Boom, 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 in my phone, in my iPad. All right. No, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do this one. It's a serious one. Because I guess, you know, why not? This one, originally I changed, it had the title, One Story from World War One, but I changed the title to One-Legged Stockman. Beauty is once around the sun, though our eyes may never comprehend. Poets sent off to war, boys given guns and told to kill boys they never met. It was the year the drought broke, pests in the wheat silo. Silver moon reflects off the lagoon. Black swans have started building nests. Marching with packs and rifles. Desert warfare in the trenches. Legless farm boys with bullets embedded. There was a mouse plague that year, run across your face in bed. The stars look very clear tonight. Days become nights, become days, blindfolded in the infirmary. Sent home on crutches, Lucky walks in the gate. Dog slinks down and snarls at the stranger. Oh, Bluey got bit by a taipan. Silhouette gum trees in sunset, crepuscular needle rays, one-legged stockman. Nobody ever thought he'd ride a horse. Whip cracks, dog barks, cattle turn. Rivers high and rising, all those full-bellied snakes. Beauty is another trip around the sun. Gratitude is an attitude. Poet, farm boy, soldier, one-legged stockman with a whip, billy of tea, on the campfire, Johnny cakes and golden syrup, flies buzz around the swag. Yeah, and that's that. Well, that's Wednesday Words for tonight. Thank you for David, Ashley, and you out there, the viewers in YouTube and the rest of the internet, into the web. You remember to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, because it all helps the metrics and gets the word out, the poetry out to other poets who love poetry. All right, I'm Thundercloud. I will see you later. Goodbye.